Work-life balance. It's one of the biggest bill of goods we've been sold that I think is completely bunk. The idea that anyone who, let's just look at in my situation, anyone who's a father, or has family, anyone who is either founding a company, running a company, a leader in their organization, and anyone who cares about their local community and has some kind of activity in there, anyone who's balancing those three roles and thinks they can balance them all at the same time and do all the things, you, my friend, are probably leading yourself towards a nervous breakdown, depression, heart attack, anxiety attack, completely feeling like you're ineffective, potentially being ineffective, ultimately languishing. You're not. I just don't see how you can flourish. Maybe you can in moments, and you can for a little while, but over time, I just don't see that balance being effective for flourishment. So you could prove me wrong, and if you can, boy, let me hear it. I mean, there's plenty of influencers out there. You go to social media, oh, they'll tell you this is how you do it all and be it all, and they'll show you on your Instagram. But I'm calling BS on a lot of that. The reality is, at least in my world, is I have to switch. I have to barter. I have to trade off one thing to another. And there's ways to do that where it's not effective. Obviously, I mean, you can be gruff about it. You can be rough about it and say, this is not important to me. This is like you hear folks talk about work sometimes. It's like they can figure out themselves. Family first, okay. Yeah. Or my family needs to understand it. I've got to do these things. Of course. But so what I've done, your mileage may vary, but what I've done is first I've got to let myself off the hook. I've got to say, it's okay, man. You can't not do it all in one moment. You'll have seasons, and some seasons are going to have more or less focus. Now, all this stuff sounds obvious. And when you hear me saying it, you're like, duh, idiot, of course. But when we're living it, I'm just telling, I'm in my head, I'm in your head probably. You think you can do it all, and you want to do it all, and you feel like you should be able to do it all. And that's the biggest thing. You shoulds, woulds, coulds, all that. But you feel like I've got to be able to do all of this. I've got to be a great CEO and founder. I've got to be a great dad and husband. I've got to be a great community member and do these things. Yep. Of course, you want to be all that, and you're a high performer. So you probably, anything you do, you want to do to the best of your ability, and you want to exit. I can't. So I've first let myself off the hook. It's just too much. So what I've allowed myself to do is see life in seasons, ebbs and flows. And there may be that season can be short. It can be a day. It can be a week. It can be a month. It can be a quarter. I don't know whether they go much longer than that. Usually I'm like a 6-week kind of guy for my length of season, 6 to 8 weeks. But there are seasons where one of those three roles for me ends up being the priority. And it's not that I ignore the other two. That's where maybe the balance comes in, if you will. It's not that I ignore the other two, but I do kind of have them. They're less of a priority, and I'm not cold to them, but I also just kind of recognize that. And if one of those two are my business or my family, I kind of communicate that so they know. I mean, the community's not sitting around waiting on you. What's Alex Reneman going to do tomorrow? They're not worried about that. So I don't necessarily have to communicate to my community, hey, I'm not going to really focus on trying to improve this for the next 6 weeks. But with my family, I do let them know, hey, Dad's got a really important strategic situation ahead that it's opportunity, it's a challenge or whatever. And I speak to them about, I need to be able to focus on this. So I'm probably going to be less active, less engaged. I might be working more hours, those kind of things, to let them know. And so they're prepared. And even when they were young, I would do this, and they're older now. I mean, they're still young. They're just coming into their teens, young teens, and not yet quite a teen. And so, but community, and my wife understands really well, and she's been so great about this through the years. And I'll explain to that, and she gets that. If I'm traveling for work or whatever else, they get that moment that I need to be CEO, Dad, not just Dad. I need to be CEO, and I'm Dad, but I'm CEO today, and I feel good for that. I feel good about that for a couple reasons. One, I'm able to be effective. I can actually focus on the job at hand, whatever I'm doing. I can be laser focused. But the other is, I also am it can be an example. And man, I'm leery, sharing, because look, who am I an example? I'm not telling you be like me, or I've not reached a pinnacle where I have the right to say be like me, but it's real that your kids and to potentially your spouse or your partner might look at you as an example for what might be okay. Because we're tribal people. We look to each other to see what's culturally okay, to how to behave and how to survive and all. It's built in our DNA. I get it. So if my family, if my kids see that work is important to me. Producing, creating, being a valuable part of society is important to me, and that work ethic is there. They see that. Now, if they see dad ignoring family all the time for that, that's a problem. But I think if they see dad out there killing it in the market and he's working hard and he's being savvy and he's smart and he's treating people well and he's doing great things, I think that's a great lesson, and I never have to say a word to them about it. They can just watch. So I do think that's important. But there's the other side too. I think in your organization, especially as a leader in your organization, wherever you are in that, um, folks are going to look to you for like, what's an okay work-life balance? And if I'm constantly working every evening, every weekend, during kids' events, I'm sitting there texting about a deal or whatever else. What message am I sending to the rest of the company about how important their family should be to them? I have decided years ago. I decided to be very I don't want to call it ruthless. That's a little too harsh, but very intentional about who I am, my roles, and what role is most important in this moment. And how long is this moment? Is this moment a few hours? Is this moment, because when I'm working during the day, there are moments, the family knows that work is important to me. However, if there's something going on, if there's a family disaster, if you were an urgency or whatever it may be, I can sometimes say, okay, company, I got to bug out here in court. And I know we all do these things. So I'm not saying you need to change anything you're doing. I guess maybe as much for myself as anybody, I'm trying to say, let yourself off the hook for doing them. You can't be all things to all people, and that's okay. So it's one of those small things that seems obvious, but I think there's a nuance there because we're told by the world lots of different messages. Again, historically, you look at that, there was that imbalance of work was primary and family would have to figure it out themselves. You had lots of absent parents that were out working, and the families kind of had to figure it out, those left at home. And on the flip side, the current is more around family first and all these things, and work sometimes never, not only second, not only third, maybe sometimes never. And I don't think that's healthy for flourishment. I just don't. And so I would encourage you to also not try to adopt this whole work-life balance. You can do it all because you can't. But you can over time when you look at the fact of a work-life barter. And so that's where I'm at. And that's what I call it. And you may have a better name. There's always going to be a better name than what I can come up with. That's fine. But for me, work-life barter is where it's at, not work-life balance. Work-life balance is a bill of goods that'll leave you hollow inside and you'll languish. But if you focus on work-life balance, I sense that's part of the path to flourishing. When I'm flourishing well, it's because I have prioritized and I'm intentional in one of my roles at that moment. And I don't ignore the others, but I'm really killing it. And over time, those roles will switch. And my intentions and my priorities will be elsewhere in another role. And over time, you look back over a few seasons of that, and that's when I'm flourishing at my best. And so hopefully that's a value to you. Hey, your mileage may vary. Again, as always, you got your own things. Maybe you can do it all, and if you can, hats off to you. Kudos. I hope the best for you, but I will urge caution that how long can you keep that up? Maybe when your hair's not gray. Maybe you can keep it up, but at some point it catches up with you, and it's a hard reality to smack into that you can't do all things at one time. You can't be all the roles you need to be. You add the other stuff in family. Most of us are kids, so we've got parents, we've got cousins, friends, we've got all kinds of people that all add on, into those roles, and just trying to be everything to everybody. It's just exhausting, and ultimately, I was finding that I was just not me. I was not valuable enough to everybody. So in my early years, I was dad, I was husband, I was on every board, doing everything I could with my community, driving all kinds of great things on boards and starting companies and growing things and traveling around and selling. And I would literally work during the day in whatever country I was in. And during the night or evenings or hours or whatever, I would then be dialing in and working here in the U.S. to solve that. And then, be family. I mean, you're just trying to balance it all. And it almost killed me. Got to tell you, and I can smile now. And in those moments, and if you're in one of those moments right now, smiles are hard to come by. And I get it. I feel for you. And I hope you hear what I'm saying as a way out. I'm not asking you to drop any of your roles. Just asking you to feel the seasons. Feel the seasons for a season for a reason. And there are times when you are going to need to focus and double down on one of those roles, and the other roles have to be okay. And it has to be okay with you that you You can't focus on all that. So, it's fun. It's easy to talk about semantics, but it's real. And I feel for you if you're in the midst of thinking you can balance it all based on some book you read or some influencer telling you or something somebody's told you through the years or just something you've decided for yourself. You got to be perfect at everything. You just can't be. And it's okay. It's okay. In fact, not only is it okay, it's right. I just don't. Convince me that you have to be all these things at one time, balance them all, and be your best. I just don't. I don't know how you can do it. I don't know how you can do it. It's just not natural. It doesn't fit with anything else we see around us. So I just, again, I'll quit beating this dead horse, but hopefully it's a value to you. It's been a huge lesson for me, and I still struggle with it. So it's not like you learn this once and done. This is a learning, executing, relearning, executing, falling down, relearning, executing, and going on and on. But it is a valuable, it's worth it. It's worth the cycle. It's worth the cycle for my kids as I see them truly flourishing when I'm giving them my best. And I'm not thinking in the back of my mind about this business deal, this maybe this sales opportunity we got to fight for to win or whatever else. At the same time, it gives me the ability to unleash my sword and go out into battle and at work when I know, the kiddos are fine. My wife's fine. They know I love them. They know I'm doing my thing. It's fine. And being able to allow those things to settle one way or the other, it's magic for me. So hopefully it's helpful to you. And I do hope wherever you are, whatever time it is, you're flourishing.